All souls, all play.
Welcome to Soul Guide with Vondie Lozano, a show about past lives, life between lives, and this life.
Hey, everybody, I'm Vondie, and so glad you're here with me today. This month, we're talking about play. And in Molly's session last week, we heard her say that they told her, all souls, all play on the other side. So there were some things I wanted to share with you about playing. So let me click up my slides. I can't believe this is episode 10 of Soul Guide, but I'm really happy that you're here with me. So, I wanted to say a little bit about some of you know I found Michael Newton through my own mediumship training after I lost my dog and went to see a medium. And I was so enamored with connecting with the other side. I actually trained with him for a while. And the first workshop I went to, we thought it was going to be like a sit down discussion. He put on Dancing Queen from ABBA and made us dance around the room in his apartment because he said souls on the other side function at a much higher vibrational level and we're down here, and we needed to lift our energy and our joy and our happiness and play, and that was one way that we could connect with them more easily. So I learned that in order to connect with souls, we needed to be at a little bit higher vibrational level, and play is one way that we do that. So there is mischief and play in the afterlife. Sometimes it's a single soul who's more the mischievous soul, but more often it's kind of a mischievous soul group. And sometimes those are younger groups, not always, but that's what I've seen. And they're like the pranksters, like they play tricks on the other souls and the other soul groups. And we'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. I had a spirit guide play a trick on me. Well, actually, it was a trick on my client. And I thought there was another time that a spirit guide was playing a trick on me, but it turned out he wasn't. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But the first one was I was doing a session for a friend of mine when I was still pretty new to this. And when she crossed over, it was very emotional when she met her spirit guide. But initially, she saw Jesus. And there are people who encounter who we would call Yeshua, the physical, actual being, as opposed to sort of the mythology, I guess, that later developed around Jesus. But she saw sort of the Christian Jesus of her childhood. And then it was almost like her spirit guide was wearing a mask and he was playing a trick with her. And that wasn't who her spirit guide was, but that's who initially the spirit guide presented as. So she was crying and laughing, and it was really intense and emotional. But her spirit guide was she said, he's playing a trick on me. So sometimes spirit guides can be a little crafty. Oh, and the one where I thought they were playing a trick on me was the session that had Mr. Mighty, which we'll have to talk about another time. That deserves its whole own show, its own episode. But it was someone who, when they crossed over, their spirit guide was mad at them. And I was like, that is not in the books. They did not tell us anything about that in my training. And I literally thought they were playing a trick on me. And it turned out her spirit guide was mad at her, well, probably annoyed because they said she was wasting her lives. And kind of if she didn't get it together, they weren't going to let her incarnate anymore. So that was a really interesting session. And that's the soul that went before Mr. Mighty, who is the place where you go when she said, when you're basically in trouble. So, like I said, that's a story, a whole story for another time. But I thought, are they playing a trick on me? And in that one, they actually weren't. In Michael Newton's book, Destiny of Souls, I was looking it up this week. He talks about recreation in the afterlife. And I remembered when I was reading, there's art, there's music, there's games of tag, but they're interesting because they're like these light beings running around. There's a game called Gem Ball, which I've never encountered in my sessions, but where they're like sending little balls of energy to each other, but there's messages within that. So if you're interested in reading more, Destiny of Souls has a whole section on recreation. But they play in the afterlife. It's not all seriousness. So what I wanted to share was from some of the sessions, and some of them we've talked about on certain episodes already. So I put the episode in case you want to go back, and I'll say them out loud for the people who might be listening on podcasts later on. So episode 9, Molly, which was last week, her past life session, her first past life was Sam, who drank and played games and had adventures. And Molly was told to be jolly like Sam. Sam, the big pot-bellied guy with the no shirt on, the hairy pot belly. That's what it was. And so she was told to be jolly like Sam, to have adventures in this life. And she's going to come back July 8th for her to share about her Life Between Lives session, which we've already done, but we couldn't fit it all in last week. And in that session, they were trying to actually entice her to kind of wrap up this incarnation and get to the next level because she's ready to be on the other side and stop incarnating. And so they were showing her, in fact, it was Yeshua taking her around, flying around the afterlife, showing her how big it was, and said, "This is what it feels like to be free." And that's where they said, "All souls, all play." And there was even a dragon. They showed her a dragon. And it's funny because later on, she showed me the book that she sort of felt like she downloaded and she helped write. And she said it looked like that dragon. But anyway, I said, "Why are they showing you a dragon?" And they said, "To tell her there's magic here. There's magic, there's play, there's fun in the afterlife." And they kept telling her, have adventures, because they wanted her to overcome some of her fears. But they mostly wanted her to have fun and enjoy her life. And that's the theme that we hear in the next couple of ones we want to talk about. Jonathan, episode 6, and then Brian, episode 4. Jonathan, when he crossed over, he said, I asked people to describe what's their guide like. What do they look like? What's their personality like? And he said, "She's funny." And I was like, "She's funny?" And then his guide told him, "Enjoy your life, go somewhere where you'll be happier." So they were actually encouraging him to move out of the city to a place with trees. So he and his family are actually moving, I believe, to Tennessee. It's kind of crazy. And then in Brian's episode, again, relax, enjoy yourself. Don't take life too seriously because there's always a do over. So, for those of us who are still incarnating, there's always a chance to come back and do the lesson another time, like not to get too worried about it or take life too seriously. And then Ken, the ones with asterisks, their names have been changed because they've asked to keep their names private. But when he crossed over into his Life Between Lives and went to his soul group, I asked, where does your soul group meet? What is it like? And he said it was a group of souls chilling in a tropical cafe. Like they were all sitting in beach chairs. I picture them wearing Hawaiian shirts. What do they call them? Aloha shirts and flip flops. But he said chilling in a tropical cafe. And then this is really interesting. They laughed and joked about their incarnations. And he said, it felt like we've done this 1,000 times. He was sitting with his soulmate, actually. Callie was his soulmate, a cousin in this life. So they laugh and joke about their incarnations. So that's one of the things they do for fun, kind of as a pastime, is talk about the previous lives they've lived and how they've gone and a little bit of how they could have done this differently or that differently. But they laughed and joked about their incarnations. And I can't remember where I read this, but in one session, I remember reading when they went and talked with their spirit guide, they said, "How long did you talk?" And I think it was something like 20 years our time, but like 10 minutes their time. So time is really different over there too. So there's plenty of time to do all of this. And then Heather, her soul group met at a party in a pub with a fireplace. So again, a fun place. They were talking, laughing, smoking. Oh, this was the Mr. Mighty session, by the way. So her soul group was kind of a rogue soul group. They were playful. Their names were Hell Yeah and Roger That. I mean, they were kind of a goof off soul group. And again, they laughed and joked about their incarnations. Like that's their pastime. That's something they do for fun. And Leah, who will be on next week, she said in her soul group, they did fun activities where they evaluate each other's performances. She said it's like movie night where they replay, quote, performances from previous lifetimes. So I think they even refer to the lifetimes as a performance. Like, remember, that's real life. This is where they come to try things out. It's almost like, I think, and Brian said, it's like taking on an avatar. So they come here, they play out these roles, and then they go back. So that's where we're our true self. This is where we take on a persona, a specific life to learn a specific task. But she said they replay their performances like up on a stage, is what I pictured. And they evaluate each other. And she chose this life because one of the reasons she chose it is because it was going to be a fun life. There were other reasons too: success and love and happiness. And Leah will be on next week and we'll hear more. In fact, I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then this is really interesting. I have never had this happen in a session before, so the guides were definitely looking out for me. So Sarah, we'll call her, came this week and I asked her permission to share this, and she said yes. So her whole soul group was playful, and they played tricks on each other, and then they said they played games, and I was like, "What?" I started taking notes. They play games. That will be perfect for this week. And I hadn't told her we were going to focus on play, but I knew we were focusing on play. And I said, "What kind of games?" And they said, "Games like now you see it, now you don't. Now you see it, now you don't." And I was asking them to explain a little bit more of it to me. And they said, skipping down to the next bullet point, is they said like signs, like they give her signs sometimes and for her to see them. And she had told me at the beginning of the session that earlier in the day she had had a Reiki session. And when the session was over, she was looking at the ceiling and she could see gold flecks all over the ceiling. Like she said, like if you were camping and you looked up at the sky and there was all the stars, only it was gold flecks. And I think they might have even been moving. And she asked the person who'd given her the session if she could see them, and she couldn't. And so in our session, I asked her soul group, were the gold flecks part of the now you see it, now you don't? And they were like, yes, that's exactly it. So those are some of the games that they play. And then they said they also do a lot of inside jokes and camaraderie. So they just kind of enjoy each other's company. They enjoy goofing around. And then they give her signs that she has to pay attention to. And one of the questions we ask is, what characteristics do you carry from life to life? And she said after the session that being playful were some of the characteristics that they carried throughout each life, her as well as the other members of her soul group. And then they even kind of played a trick on me. I didn't realize it till I got home. Is I keep my notes at my office and I reference the past life session, the notes before I start the life between life session. And so I went to pull out her past life notes and my cabinet was empty. And I was like, where are all my files? And then I remembered, oh, I think I took them home because I was going to put labels on the files, better labels. And so I had to do it. I had to ask her, can you refresh my memory? I mean, I remember most of it, but when she refreshed my memory, it all came back. But normally I have all this information right in front of me and I'm really organized. So it kind of threw me off my game a little bit. So I brought her notes home to put them with her file where I thought it was at home. And when I got home, it wasn't here either. And then I remembered, oh, I moved them to a different drawer and I completely forgot. So I felt like it was a now you see it, now you don't. And I have a really, really good memory, but that day I forgot that I had moved my notes. So I felt like when I got home, I texted her. I said, I think your soul group was even playing a trick on me and that I forgot where I put my notes. So that was just this week, a really special, really playful session that involved games and tricks. So I was wrapping up my getting ready for today this morning, and I write my notes out and I tape them behind my computer in case I need to reference them. And I felt like they were saying, okay, the whole point of telling everyone that souls play is we want you to play. They want you to play. So I added an extra card here in the presentation. So, how do you play? I felt like that's what they wanted me to ask you. What is fun for you? I was looking up definitions because we're doing a blog post about this month, and it should be coming out next week. But the definition of play, play is how do they say it? Intrinsically rewarding. So there's no external reason to do it. There's no purpose. We don't get something out of it, or it's not like we get money or something. But it's just something that we do because it's enjoyable to us. So just maybe even allow yourself some time later today if you get a chance. What is fun for you? These are the questions to ask yourself. What stops you So sometimes we feel guilty, or we feel like we should be working, or there's so many other things we should be doing. I actually had another situation this week where someone was telling me exactly that, that they feel like they should always be working and that they're not taking care of business if they're not. So, but play is actually good for us. It's good for our brain. It's good for us in all kinds of ways. But mostly, it just replenishes our soul, and it's kind of what we're born to do. It's what we do on the other side. It's part of who we are. So, what stops you from playing, from having fun? And then maybe we just take baby steps. Like, what's one little way you could incorporate play or fun into your life? So they wanted me to make sure and ask you those questions. So if anybody wants to in the comments include what you like to do for play, I see some comments coming through. Oh, in fact, let me click on that. I would love to hear. So those are the things they wanted me to make sure and mention. How do you play? What is fun for you? What stops you? And then baby steps. I love dancing, singing, and helping others. It gives me joy. Krish Pillay, thank you. Acting is okay. There's Leah. She's going to be with us next week. Acting is so fun for me. David Ortiz, I love playing music and writing songs. You know what? I was thinking of you this week, David, that you playing the guitar, you sent me a beautiful song. And sometimes those things that we're gifted at, that we also like playing at, are things that we do on the other side. That's why we're so good at it. Not to take away from how good you are at something naturally, but we often are developing these gifts from life to life and even on the other side. Oh, and I forgot to say, music is the main way we communicate on the other side. It's not with words, it's with sounds, and particularly with music and singing. And Michael Newton mentions that quite a bit. I can't remember if it's Journey of Souls. It might be Destiny of Souls because he goes into more detail. So let me look over. I see Ola from Jose. I see hi. I see Leah and David. How funny. And thank you, Emily. Let's see. How playful children are and how infectious having opportunities to play with children can be. Oh, thanks. And my wonderful assistant Leticia is back. Thank you. She's putting the comments up for us. We're so happy you're back. Um, This makes me think of how playful children are and how infectious having opportunities to play with children can be. Yes. And I think that's because they're newer, so they have forgotten. They haven't forgotten the lessons to play. Well, and I heard just this week, and I know this, and a lot of you know this, is that younger souls, children, they often are still very connected to the afterlife. That's where you have children who remember previous lives and other things like that, or imaginary friends. And some of that fades as they get a little older, but definitely they know how to play and they are more connected with that. And I know a lot of us came to life between lives through grief, through a loss. That's what drew us to connecting with the afterlife. And so that's where play can be so healing. When I was grieving, my little niece and nephew were preschoolers, and it was the only thing that took me out of the grief. So play refuels us and heals us and nourishes us in all kinds of ways. So I don't see any more comments. So if there's nothing else, we're going to wrap up. But they did want to make sure that I included that they want you to play. That I kept hearing it's your soul's birthright. So I don't know how that fits, but that's what they were telling me. It's your birthright. So, all right. So let me get out of here. So, just in closing, I want to say that they're very interested in you playing, and that next week Leah will be on. Oh, I see comments coming in. Yes, play is healing. Thank you, David. Next week, Leah will be on, who's with us today, but she will be here next week. And she said, acting is so fun for me. So we'll find out more about her sessions. We did them a while ago, but they were amazing. And one of the things they kept telling her was to go bigger. So Leah is definitely playing a bigger game now. In fact, she just filmed a trailer for a new TV show, and they'll be filming a pilot soon. So very, very exciting. She wrote, I can't wait. So thank you everyone for watching. Oh, and we are on all the podcast stations. We went live on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and then this week I got a notice we should be going on all the others. It just might take a week or two for them to show up on all the other podcast stations. So look for us on your favorite podcast station. And I believe Leticia is going to put a link up for Spotify. Oh, there we go. I see it. That's fantastic, Leah. I know, isn't it exciting? And we'll also put up a link to the website if you have any questions. But we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And join us next week for another episode of Soul Guide.